how to preserve something else because, as you'll see from this channel, that's what we do. We only have 2 people that live in this house. I like buying in bulk, so we buy things. There are people that are going to tell you, bring it home, prep it that day. We don't do that. One, I'm tired after we're done shopping. So I'm going to show you, we're about 4 or 5 days after we went to Sam's and we bought 2 big bags of potatoes. And when we did, we used a few for Thanksgiving. And now I'm going to show you what we are going to do with them. We're going to freeze them, but we're going to prep them. Today we're going to do home fries. This is just some water that they're in so that we can get some of the starch out of them. We're going to keep stirring this, then we're going to rinse it a few times. We're going to dump it all out. We're going to rinse it at least 3 times so the water is almost completely clear. You want to get a lot of the starch out so that they're not like that white milky stuff on them. You can put them in any way you want. You can slice them in big chunks. We're going to blanch ours and then we're going to dry them real well. We're going to put them on a sheet tray and get them into the freezer. We're going to use some smaller ones because my deep freezer is not very big and we already have another sheet tray prepped with other things that is in my other freezer. This freezer in the house, it's one of the side-by-sides, so it's not very big. But I don't want to say we're on the lazy side. We're going to go with nutritional. So we keep the skins on ours. I hate peeling potatoes, and that is where all your nutrition is in them. So this is real simple. Depending on the size of your potato, you want to have them in chunks. The only rule there is to try to keep them about the same size. They don't have to be perfect. I had one that I cut wonky just a few minutes ago. Not a big deal. If there's any big eyes, get rid of your big eyes. This one has some little ones, but it's not going to be a big deal. Let's make this one a little bit smaller. Make sure it fits. So this is all we're going to do. We're going to chop these up. Usually I do big batches of these, but because my freezer is already busy, we're going to have to do them in a few smaller batches. And then we're going to blanch these. Blanching is not cooking through. It is putting them in boiling water or simmering water. You want to bring it to a boil and then lower it slightly. These go in for 3 to 5 minutes. I'm probably going to go about 4. And that just keeps them protected. They're going to go in the freezer, I'm going to say about 4 hours. And after that, I'm going to put them in my storage bags and we're going to vacuum seal them. We have a problem that we were trying to correct where, again, there's only 2 of us, so we put all this food in the freezer and then it gets freezer burned. When you vacuum seal, that's not going to happen. But if you put these in, I actually found out when I was doing peppers and onions, the vacuum sealer started sucking the fluid up into the vacuum sealer and I started panicking. So that's why I now flash freeze, which is putting them in the freezer for a few hours. They're not covered, they're just on a sheet pan. Sometimes I put parchment underneath them, and then after that, we'll vacuum seal them, and I'll show you that. But let me cut one more potato, and then I will show you the blanching process. Anyway, I have boiling potatoes. What I did was I ran them under water. I dumped the first batch of water. I mixed them with my hands while I loaded it back up. And I drained it 3 times to make sure that the water was absolutely clear before I put it in the boiling water, which of course lowered our temperature. And then we had to bring it back to a boil. So when we brought it back to the boil, that's when we started timing it. I'm doing these for 4 minutes. I'm going to make sure that the outer edges are all cooked. So when you freeze them, they're not, it's hard to explain. If you freeze them and you have not blanched them, they get like mealy, which is not a good taste. And then, so if you do this, it actually cooks them slightly, and then you just pull them out of the freezer, break them up a little bit, vacuum seal them. When you pull them out of the vacuum sealer bags, then you can just throw them in the pan. Sometimes we do a little bit of water to steam them a little bit, make sure they defrost, but we use them as home fries, or sometimes people call them hash browns. I think hash browns are shredded, but We also use them in breakfast tacos, which I'm going to do a video on our breakfast tacos because we freeze those also so that we can just grab them. We like freezing because with 2 people, even buying a dozen eggs, sometimes they don't get used. They do in our house, but sometimes they don't. Now we're baking for the holidays, so they'll get used. But, alright, we're at our 4-minute mark. So, these are going to come out. I just stirred a little bit to get under them because you don't want to get this metal too much on your pan. We're going to put them in a water bath. That's it. I'm going to do another batch of these. Woo. My burner got a little water and it was not happy. So I'm just going to get these nice and cool. We're going to dry them off, throw them in the freezer, and then I will show you what they look like when we vacuum sealed them. Hi, I'm Karen. Another day, because my potatoes that you see in the beginning of the video are not solid like rocks. Same dress, different day, but in reality, we're going for consistency. I usually spend most of my time in pajamas, so I just throw a dress on and we do some videos. But I'm going to show you how to finish these potatoes in the vacuum sealer. We want to make sure that all this white stuff doesn't keep accumulating and ruin your potatoes while they're in the freezer. Right before I did this, I did hamburger. There's only 2 of us in the house, and we buy bulk. This is from Sam's, so it's only, I think, 5 pounds. We split it into 4 sections, and I vacuum sealed it. It'll keep the freezer burn away from this too. But if you see this red, that's blood. I didn't freeze these. I wanted to see if I could actually vacuum seal them. Before, when we first did it, they were actually down. They're now spreading a little bit. So this is something I won't have to freeze before putting in my vacuum sealer. But if you watched the peppers and onions, they do the same thing as the potatoes. They have moisture in them. So if you try to do them after you cut them and they're not frozen, it starts pulling all that liquid into my vacuum sealer, and I don't want to ruin that vacuum sealer. Another thing about this is make sure you label things when they're frozen. Don't look the same. It takes you like 2 seconds. We keep a Sharpie in a drawer. We all know where it's at, and we label things because it's not going to look like this in 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months. I guarantee in like 6 months you're not going to remember what this was. So we have those for the deep freezer, but I'm going to show you how to finish these and get these in the freezer also. This is a Cosori. I don't have a food saver. They were very expensive. So I started doing research on Amazon, and this one had great reviews. I'll leave a link in the description so that you can see if you like it. Also, it might be on a holiday deal right now. But it had great reviews. I've had no problems with it. I absolutely love it. It's one of the best investments I ever made, and I will definitely buy one of these again if I need to. So it's so simple. This is a roll of bags. That's literally how I buy them. They're different sizes. This was a 2-pack that actually came together. You just put it in there and feed it through. We use a little bit more bag than we're thinking we're going to need. You just want to give it a little bit so it can vacuum seal. It has a cutter, and you cut it. It's seriously this simple. So down here, this is your heating element, and this is the vacuum chamber. When you do this, you do have to have it like near the vacuum chamber, and then we're just going to rock it. I'm going to kind of hold it because it's going to actually try to seal. I try to vacuum more like it, and we're just going to manual seal it. Or not. There we go. What I learned with this one is if I'm doing the first few bags, I need to let it sit. It makes that little puff, and I let it sit for a few seconds. If I don't let it sit, sometimes the seal doesn't actually hold, and then I have to pull all the food back out and start over. So usually if it stays on the bottom, it's still pretty good. If it sticks up here, that's usually the ones that are not very good. All we're going to do, possibly, is we're going to put these potatoes in here. I'm not going to lie, these things are like rocks. You've heard me drop it. And I'm not kidding. I had so much trouble getting them out. We usually put parchment, and I was like, it'll be okay. We're only going to put them in there for like 4 hours. And then we filmed a few other things, and I was like, they can sit. And they can legitimately sit, but if I knew I was going to leave them in there, I probably should have put the parchment paper under there. So, like I said, you want to leave some room because you need it to be able to get that vacuum. So we're going to put it in. I always put the, like it's a grid. I put that side down. I've had trouble when I do it the opposite way. I don't know why, but okay. I just spread them out a little bit so that the air can get moved. Some of them I flatten because some of these sharp edges, because they're frozen, they're even sharper. They can puncture your bag, and then again you're starting over. This is my favorite part. I just like watching it. And then you'll actually watch that this side that was nice and smooth takes on the texture of the other side. There's your puff. As soon as it's puffed, you can actually open it. But again, I'm going to let it sit for just a second. And then these are push and come up. And then I'm just going to label the top. And we're completely done. I'm going to do a few more bags. These potatoes are a little bit bigger than we normally make them. We make them a little bit smaller. But this time we just wanted to do some big chunks. We can cut them down later, but we can also leave them this size. The other thing is we decided to do little bags. Last time we did it a big bag, and we just resealed it each time we used it. Got to be a little bit of a pain. This way we can pull it out, use a bag. You can save it for like a smaller thing. Just wash it out with soap and water, let it dry real good. But we like the smaller bags because we don't have to mess with them too much. Sometimes we'll just put a little clip on them. But I hope you found this useful. Again, this is a Cosori. I will put the Amazon link on there. I'm not an affiliate. I just like the product. So I hope you have fun vacuuming. I love preserving food.